This is Silicon Reel, the half hour dedicated to the people of the London tech startup scene. I am Brian Rose, I'm the host of London Reel, and this is the concept of my partner in crime, Mr. Colin Pyle, who comes to London via Toronto, China, and India, sometimes on a motorcycle, sometimes not, sometimes with Guinness Book World Records, sometimes without. But before we get to our guests, Ben, I was wondering, Colin, if you could tell people about your vision for Silicon Reel, because that's the only reason we're here, is because you sent me an email a few weeks ago.
Yeah. It's really simple. It's just I always find the stories behind great businesses or great failures or even just businesses that flutter about very interesting. And as an investor, as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking at the people, and I think the people is so important. Great ideas come and go, but the people really drive those ideas. So tech startup scene in London is amazing. It's going nuts right now, and I just felt like we need to tell stories, and we need to find great people to tell those stories. So let's do it.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. And I have to agree with you. I've just got into the tech startup scene. We had Bryce Keane, one of the other beards here, a couple weeks ago, and I've been at two Silicon Drink About so far, and I've caught the bug. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But for our inaugural episode, we are very stoked to welcome Benjamin Southworth. He is the now departing Deputy CEO of Tech City UK, which I believe is a government organization created to promote business in the UK technology startup scene. Welcome to Silicon Reel, and was that about accurate?
That's bang on. That's exactly what it was kind of aimed to do. And yeah, it's great to be here. And just thank you guys for doing this. This is exactly what London needs. You know, we need these stories coming out, and it is about people.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it is all about the people, and you know, you're one of the drivers behind building the community, and I think that's what's so important is the community. We met via the community, and this is only going to work with the community.
Yeah, and you were one of the original beards that started the Silicon Drink About, which is this get together that has such a good vibe about it. It's got like a, you know, we're not there to talk business, but we can. But it's all about helping people. You don't charge admission. It's like anybody can come. It feels cool when you get there, like you can just hang out. And I know you used to be involved in a variety of startups in the roundabout tech scene until 9 months ago you were kidnapped, or you took a job with Tech City UK, and that contract's coming to the end in August. I was wondering if you could tell us what that was like, what you did there. I know you liaised with number 10 Downing Street. Did you have to think hard before you accepted the job? And I'll just let you answer.
Yeah, I thought really hard about taking the job. You know, I arrived in London sort of, what are we up to now? Probably getting on to 3 years. And I predominantly worked in Cambridge, which is the only place that I knew of that used the phrase startups in the UK. There used to be a lot of technology businesses there. Shifted recently in the last sort of 3-4 years more to sort of biotech, medtech. Right. And that's mainly because the university is shifting its focus. But for a long time, Cambridge University was the place where the computer geeks were, and they were producing amazing stuff, spinning that out, creating amazing businesses. You know, and autonomy being, you know, the proof of that. You know, it was a huge sale. And so, you know, after a sort of series of failed relationships, and I kind of found myself in London with kind of no friends, a sort of fledgling sort of consultancy business around startups. And I'm a hacker by training. I'm mainly Googling, just sort of trying to kind of get startups and small businesses online, kind of trying to get them to understand what it is they're doing. You know, spend all my time online reading about how to do this, lean startup methodology, looking at the valley. And I spent 3 months living in Denver, Colorado, and got plugged into the Boulder scene out there. People like Andrew Hyde and Brad Feld. And I just loved it. I fell in love with this community they created, this like open door policy, like everyone is equal, there's no one better than someone else. Right. Like there's no question you can't ask. Just this kind of really sort of laid back, sort of Colorado, sort of foothills mountain vibe. And I was just like, this is awesome. This is so cool. And it's not standard sort of British stuck up, don't talk to me, I'm too important, you know. Right. And so when I kind of was in London, you know, I needed to find work. And I went along to a tweet up, and I found two guys. I found Bryce and Michael. And we were sat there drinking this beer. And I can be fairly blunt. And we didn't like what we saw. We were just like, this is shit. Like, you know what, we can do this better. And Bryce, being Australian, said, well, you know, we need to have a barbecue. It's like, okay, awesome. It's like, well, you're a designer, you work in an agency doing PR, I'm a geek. Let's target these three people. Let's throw a party, free beer, free food, get someone to pay for it, get everyone in the room, and just get everyone talking. So somehow we kind of kept talking and we kept in touch and we hacked it together, and we've just managed somehow, like with luck, blessings, lots and lots of phone calls.
Big beards.
Lots of. But at the time, the beards were small. We were young
okay.
beards then.
Young beards, yeah.
Yet to kind of grow into into our faces, and we put it on, and everyone loved it. Twitter blew up. It just went mental, and we were just like, "There's something in this," and everyone was like, "When's the next one? When's the next one?" So we did another one. And it was bigger and better, and I think we started with 80 people, and we got to 160 people, and we raised like $3,000 in sponsorship for the first one, and then we got
It's impressive.
$6,000.
Yeah.
And it was hustle, right? And it was kind of that just sheer determination, force of will.
Right.
Like, who can we ask for money? Like, just give us money, and we'll put interesting people in a room, and then you get to come along.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of grooving along, and we set up a few more events. We created Don't Pitch Me Bro. We saw a need for the emerging startup community to showcase in a kind of low stress way what it was they were working on. And we got that up. And somewhere around the second sizzle, Michael Acton Smith, who'd actually set Silicon Drinkabout up, and he's the CEO of Moshi Monsters, said, look, I love what you guys are doing. I haven't got time to run this. Take it off us. So we said, okay. So we've been running it for him, really, for the best part of now 2.5 years. And at the time, it was kind of really just the Moshi Monsters after work drinks.
Yeah.
Didn't feel very sort of accessible and open. And we knew what Michael wanted it to be. So we kind of applied the same sort of methodology, which is be visible, be there, kind of greet people, be nice, make sure everyone's got a beer, like make sure everyone's been fed, looked after, you know, connect people up. And we did a lot of real sort of manual, physical, oh, you've got to talk to this guy, you've got to talk to this guy. You know, hey, you're not talking to anyone, let's go and talk to you. And we just kind of bootstrapped it up.
It's so important because, you know, tech people can be a little introverted sometimes.
Yeah, you know.
I can be a little introverted sometimes.
And it's weird, right? If you go to, it's like going to a house party, right? You just need to, you're always looking for that friend you know.
Right.
You know, and actually sometimes the greatest conversation is with the person
You don't
know.
Yeah.
And actually we just wanted to facilitate that and make that happen.
It's the only way to grow a community, really, too, right? To facilitate the introduction of things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just clique it up, and you know, you ended up where you were before.
And people get addicted to it, right? Like,
Yeah.
once people know that's what you do, they then do it,
Yeah.
right? So the more
Okay.
connections you throw out, the more connections come back to you. You know, people are always coming up and saying, hey, Ben, you've got to meet this guy. Hey, you've got to meet this guy. You've got to meet this guy. You've got to meet this guy. And it's like, wow, okay. And you end up meeting these fantastic men and women who are building fantastic businesses, putting everything on the line. And it's so inspiring. Like, it's an honor to help them. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pleasure. You know, it's such a kind of... So there I was, grooving along doing that, building websites for a variety of different people and clients and businesses. We did a town hall with Tech City UK, because we kind of realised there was this kind of community engagement piece that they were missing. And we did it. And then I got this phone call from number 10 Downing Street, and I put the only suit I own on, made sure I got my picture for my mum, went down, got my picture, went down and talked to them, and they said, look, come on board for 12 months, kind of help us make this make sense. You know, tell the story of what we're trying to do to these people. And I thought long and hard about it, because at the time it wasn't maybe in the best space. People were quite sort of, at worst, negative about it, or at best sort of neutral to it.
This is people in the community were negative about Tech City?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they weren't sure what government was trying to do.
Right.
You know, this cluster emerged on its own, and people were like, why do we need this government piece? Why do we need to kind of be told what to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's always the fear when you deal with government. It's the government is going to take away something from you. And the more I kind of talked to government, the more I kind of understood what they wanted to do, the more I was like, actually, only government can do some of these things.
To help.
You know, absolutely. Like, so creating a tax policy, you know, convening all the local landowners together, you know, looking at entrepreneur visas, you know, working out immigration piece, and giving it a kind of global story is really hard. The Beards couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it. I don't think almost anyone could have done it. It needed that sort of big reach that government has. And so I kind of was not sure, and I went and chatted to Bryce, and Bryce said, look, you can either do it, or you can watch someone else do it. And if they're not doing it right, you're going to be so angry with yourself. I was like, okay, thanks, Bryce.
Yeah.
And he knows how to wind me up. Like he knows,
Yeah,
he knows exactly what I need to know.
Do you want to be a critic, or do you want to be critiqued?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I stepped in and went in, and I learned a lot. Like probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It was very, very challenging in lots of ways. I'm used to startups. I'm used to entrepreneurs. I'm used to agile software teams. I'm used to super fast, from idea to delivery stuff. And I was in this kind of gigantic tanker trying to turn it around, and it was hard, and everyone kind of, they don't mean to fight you, but they're so scared of getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And actually to get stuff right, you sometimes have to make really big, difficult decisions. And it was just that kind of sort of day in, day out sort of difference.
Yeah.
They're in suits, they're 50, 60-year-old people.
Are they thinking about their long-term political careers in these moves, and is that why they're a little more cautious?
Of course, and it's the civil service is simultaneously a wonderful thing and also a negative thing. It's very hard for them to take a risk, because it's one of the very few jobs with a good pension package these days in the UK. And you're dealing with important people, but these important people are there because of 30 years of good service, who can see that pension pot, and they can see it. And there's me, who's 32, bearded, in a t-shirt, angry, swearing, passionate, sort of, and there's this kind of distrust of each other, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's these other sort of political pieces, which is, I didn't come from their world, so I don't know anything, and I'm just dropped in by number 10. And politics starts to play a part. And I was naive and innocent about it. I didn't know. I didn't think. I just kind of assumed we were all trying to do the right thing. And I don't think they were trying to do the wrong thing, but they weren't willing to take the risks sometimes to do the right thing.
From this new guy that just,
Yeah, this new kind of beardy, sweary, non-suit wearing, sort of disrespectful kind of upstart.
Yeah.
And I've never been good with authority ever, at all. So this was a kind of a tough place for me to be. But you kind of very soon find the allies in the organisations. You find the people who get it, and you learn how to make your ideas become true. And then when that happens, it's magic. And you can see why people get addicted to being in power or politics, because you can do insane things, and you can have conversations with huge people and get them excited about stuff. And you can do crazy things like ask 4G to double, triple the speed of the local network, and they'll do it. It's kind of crazy. You're like, okay, what else can we ask for? And it's like, well, we need some people to do some apprenticeship stuff. Yeah, we can do that. We need to kind of get some visa stuff happening. Oh, yeah, we can do that.
Wow.
And just started thinking, wow, and connecting up with investors to give feedback to HMRC to talk about the tax policies they put in place for entrepreneurs, and amassing this insane group of super smart, super connected, wealthy investors to make sure that feedback loop's there. And a lot of what I personally did was make sure the policies made sense to the community, and then facilitate those conversations and make sure those kind of feedback loops were as short as possible. And I kind of did it, and I kind of can't believe that I did. But I managed to do what I set out to do.
Right.
And life doesn't always go like that, right?
Most of the time,
Not at all. And you were hired on to be the deputy CEO, and then later Joanna Shields came on, who was the former Facebook vice president, I think, of the European head, and appointed the CEO.
Yep.
So was it, in your mind, was it always just 12 months, or was it like, let's just see what happens?
It was, I knew, I'm a very project-focused kind of person. So I never really was, I would see what would happen after 12 months, for sure. But I wanted to do as much as I could, and all I wanted to do was kind of respect those people who had been so lovely to me. People were so kind when I took the job on, and have been so generous to me with their time and their support. And I needed that. I needed that. After tough weeks and going to drink about and people, saying you're doing a good job, it meant everything to me. These were, I worked for these people. That's how I saw it.
It's almost like a community service you gave for a year or something.
Well, yeah, I kind of see it as national service. It's like, that was me.
Some go to the military. And
some do, right? Some do Peace Corps, and this is like Tech Corps, right? It's just like, you go in and you do your time.
Right. So you pushed a lot of those bureaucracies and boundaries, but it's like, now that you maybe have your alliances and you can actually get stuff done, do you kind of wish you were there for another year? You might be able to get more done in the next year than you got in the last year?
I think the answer is I don't know.
Right.
I'm not really sure kind of how much there's left for me or for my role to do. The community's engaged, the community's plugged in, the community's connected. The community has a voice directly to number 10 now. I don't really see what more I could do. And there's always projects, but some of these projects I can just do on my own anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of challenge of I'd kind of sprinted for 12 months, and I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I'm really done. I need a break, I need a rest, and then the opportunity came up to say, let's call it done.
Yeah.
And actually working out what's next is really interesting. I'm kind of working out how I would have done things within the organisation more. I don't know. I can't see that piece. I don't really see.
I want to hear about what you have next, but if we were just going to wrap up the Tech City thing, what would you say would have been your best accomplishment while you were there, and what was your biggest disappointment?
Good question. I think the best thing I did was I managed to make it understandable of what the government was trying to do.
To the community.
Yeah.
Communication.
Right.
Yeah. I think, and kind of just being accessible, being around, not being all in Whitehall all the time. Just being on the ground and knowing people can tweet me.
Probably just being on Twitter was probably someone that they never had anyone that was probably as engaging as you are.
Right.
Maybe, but I think just, the fact that people knew me, liked me, trusted me, kind of, that really helped. Government is, a very unique organisation in the world, and there's no company that can ever do what a government does. But sometimes they do a really bad job at explaining what it is they're trying to do, and so people get a bit wary about it. And actually there's that translation piece of what government's trying to do to how that actually will affect people and why it's awesome. And I think once people understood, actually, you've got people at number 10 who make change happen, make policy happen, listening to this tiny, growing, rapidly accelerating sector, is kind of mind-blowing, because it never happened before, ever. And we've introduced policies that UK-wide will bootstrap up digital businesses, and what they are doing, and the people inside who are doing it are inspirational and are sort of, they're like entrepreneurs for government. They're really, hacking the system, and being, able to explain that honestly, frankly, straightforwardly, without kind of bullshitting anyone, was a real kind of point of pride and something I didn't want to lose.
Okay. Disappointment.
Disappointment. I was going to say the IT curriculum, but we've actually just announced that that's going to change now. But that was, I think, whilst not a disappointment, certainly the hardest piece, because it doesn't matter how much we jump up and down and say there are amazing people doing amazing things, unless that pipeline of amazing people is there,
Right.
it's going to fall over.
This is for students in the UK, just
Yeah.
the basic, from grade 4 on, or just what?
Yeah, so the IT curriculum, now thankfully changing, was awful. I mean, it was like, here's an Excel spreadsheet, here's formatting, and it's like, really? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are using Facebook day in, day out, Twitter day in, day out, YouTube day in, day out. Like, they know this. Like, they know it from birth. So it's kind of trying to get them to understand the impact of it. And there are many people still, and we forget this outside of the scene, there are many people who are still scared by computers.
Yeah.
Right? They're just scared. They don't know what they are. They're worried about how it's going to impact society. So that was a really tough, long conversation, and very frustrating. It's really frustrating when you're passionate about something and they can change it. And
Is that something you fought like from day one, and it took you 12 months to kind of? And is that now? How long does it take for that to change? Like, you change their mind. Is that implement next year, or is it in like 10 years?
In this case, it's going to go in next year.
Next year. So that quickly they can alter.
Yeah, they can, but it's a really long conversation to get them to do it. And a lot of it was just facilitating and saying, no, go and talk to these people. Like, they've got it. They've actually built you a curriculum. They just want you to look at it.
Yeah.
And kind of, it's like anything, right? If you hear something once, you can kind of ignore it. If you hear it twice, you're like, oh, that's that thing again. You hear it 3 times from 3 different people, 3 different places. You start to go, what is this?
Yeah.
And, kind of using all the various connections from people like Mozilla to the Cabinet Office, getting everyone to kind of coalesce and just attack all the time on this. Never give up, just constantly emailing, haranguing, hassling.
Sounds like you're a politician now.
Yeah.
Well, that's the game you have to play.
Yeah.
Whether I like that or not, it kind of, you have to do a sort of small lobbying piece and make it happen.
Okay. Where in the future, Silicon Reel is going to have kind of a 30-minute structure where we kind of go through specific questions. We have people on. You're obviously a little bit different because you're like a really big picture guy. You've been in the scene. So I won't hit you with the same questions we're going to hit everyone else. But one of the ones Colin and I came up with, if someone gave you £10 million right now, what would you do with it? Now, you're in an interesting situation because you're coming out looking at all the possibilities of what you want to do next.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do next? And let's say, for example, you had 10 million of seed capital in the bank. What would you invest your time and your money in?
So there's a sort of 3 or 4 projects I certainly want to get going. I've always wanted to do a big East London sort of multi-site sort of tech festival that fuses how computers are interacting with music, with art, with theatre, with fashion, and really kind of stitch what's amazing about London and the UK up with the amazing tech stuff. Fortunate enough to have 2 amazing partners who I think can really help me deliver that. We've got All Tomorrow's Parties, who run fantastic festivals all across the world now, and Dazed and Confused, who are an amazing art and sort of fashion magazine looking at digital. And I think we're going to try and kickstart this festival up. We're going to try and sell the tickets a year in advance, get people excited and pull in sponsors and try and make that happen. So I definitely want to spend at least 4 weeks of my time doing that and kind of get that up and get that out and start promoting that. I've got my charity, which is Tech Bikers. We're riding from Paris to London again, 100 riders, all entrepreneurs, investors, the scene. Hopefully trying to build 3 to 4 schools in Nepal.
Is this bicycle or motorbike?
Yep, cycling.
Because you used to be a bike messenger.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
I don't know if I was outing you there or anything.
No, that's fine.
Did you used to hang out at the Foundry back in the day?
I did it in Cambridge. It was much more genteel. It was kind of a sit up and beg bike. It was like delivering
a little basket on the front.
Yeah, absolutely. Waving. So there's that, and then I also I'm really inspired at the moment about digital skills and schools. And I think there's a really opportunity to do something around a free school model, which is pupil-centered learning, looking at sort of things like the Harkness model that Exeter in the States does, trying to kind of basically produce maybe only 30 at a time, 16 to 18-year-old disadvantaged kids, and trying to produce really digitally savvy, business savvy, sort of wannabe entrepreneurs for the area, and probably we'll do a pricing model around getting the companies to pay after 3 months of having hired these people, back in to fund the school so the school can kind of do more. So it's kind of using businesses to basically pay for what would be very, very expensive private schooling, but for disadvantaged kids.
Wow.
And trying to kind of grow that out so that it moves, and you do 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and ultimately I would like to see it run from 5 all the way up to 18, and maybe do some post-grad stuff and some university piece, and kind of really just try and build, I guess like a school I would have wanted to go to, a school that kind of really prepped me, and enabling kids to kind of specialise on what it is that they care about rather than what we think they should learn.
Right.
It's strange because I think everyone that's going to be sitting here for the next 4 weeks is going to tell you how they're going to take that 10 million and make it £1 billion, and we're going to go public, and we're going to, and yet Ben seems to be just talking about very philanthropic endeavors. Why is that?
Just, I don't know, like I learned in this job and with the beards, like if you give stuff away,
Comes back.
it really
Like
comes
tenfold,
back,
right?
and it comes back in ways you never knew, and you would never, like, you open yourself up to these opportunities. I think if you chase money, you get money. If you chase something you love, you can often get money and love, and that's kind of a much more sort of holistic, happier way I want to be. I don't need a fortune. I just want to do good things and be proud of what I achieved. But at the same time, I'd like a nice house somewhere.
Money's good also.
Yeah, money makes things possible, right?
Yeah. No, it's
Sure.
good. Money does open doors, but no, I agree. I think I as an ex-finance guy, currency trader, you're just chasing the bonus, the paycheck, the more money, the bigger house, the better car, and at a point it just becomes sort of soul destroying, right? And so, my shackles are sort of on the floor way behind me now, and I'm moving forward and much happier for it, right? And just giving back is important, and I think that's some of your ideas are phenomenal, and
Thanks.
they're not small, right? So and they're big ideas, but they're great ideas, and I think a lot of them you actually might be able to implement now with your Downing Street experience, right? Because a lot of those things would be hard to do without some of those relationships, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about kind of that was what I didn't understand with the gig, was it would make me think like this and think big.
Right.
Like, I kind of thought it would make me focus on small stuff, but actually it made me kind of have mad big ideas.
Working for the government opened your mind.
Which is like just completely counterintuitive, right?
Yeah,
you just don't imagine it. But you get to interact with all these people who are doing big, world-changing things, and it becomes really addictive. It becomes, but I'm also selfish. I also want to go back to coding. I also want to build a few little products that solve a few little personal itches.
I saw that on your blog. You want to get back and code. One of the other questions we're going to ask on a regular basis is, aside from what you want to focus on, which is some coding and some very philanthropic stuff, what do you see out there that's one of the most exciting and fastest growing parts of the tech startup? I mean, if there's one or two things you see where you're like, keep your eye on this, without making any enemies or friends.
It has to be sort of wearable, quantified medtech stuff. I think this kind of quantified self piece is just going to start hitting the mainstream like so hard and so fast. And I think I was hanging out a few Fridays ago with a guy who'd gone to Shenzhen, China, and got this guy to build a watch with sensors on that can track blood pressure and heart rate, and sends it via Wi-Fi to his computer, and he's got all this stuff, and that's the thing I think we're going to see, and I think that's going to really impact like just healthcare as a whole and that sort of stuff. I think it's going to really start to transform how we think about ourselves as humans, and enable us to sort of really hit a next level sort of evolutionary change. And I think that sort of quantified self-data piece is really fascinating. But there's also so much still to be done. Like, lots of things are quite rubbish. Lots of tech is still a bit rubbish.
A lot of that stuff, battery power, I find, right? Like, if you have your watch, Bluetooth watch attached to your phone all day, like my phone doesn't last all day anyway.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you can't jump the hurdle of battery power, then I find those things...
It sounds like battery tech's coming down and down and getting better and better. And we are going to start seeing much more conductive charging stuff, I think. It's still not quite there, but, computers are only just getting to the point that we always kind of hoped they would be. Actually, you know, for a while the internet was a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
It was a bit slow. It wasn't that interesting. And now it's kind of getting, you know,
it's exciting.
broadband, full stream, HD, surround sound, like, you know, becoming the ultimate content delivery system. And but there's more to the internet than that. There's more to computers than tweeting pictures of your food. Like, there's more to it. There's still problems in the world. There's still stuff to fix. There's still money to be made doing it, right? And I think previously what we've seen is sort of entrepreneurs make a money and then become philanthropists. And actually what I kind of want to sort of do and be inspired by is doing good and making money at the same time is nice. It's a good feeling. It's kind of fun.
It's the only way it sustains, too.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
It has to be a business model, or else it just will flutter away.
Yeah, and you know, you can't rely on just donations if you're going to do good stuff, right? You have to. There needs to be a sort of middle way of trying to support people and trying to create value. Yeah. But when Africa comes online and smartphones and Bitcoin and SMS payments, there's some really interesting disruptive stuff that's going to happen there, like super fascinating.
You know, I was reading recently, I was comparing the number of IPOs that happen in New York versus London versus tech, and it's like 100 and something to, I don't know, maybe I'm quoting the numbers wrong, 20 or 25. And we had one of the Beards, Bryce Keane, on here, and we talked about how London is trying to shake off this, like, we're the forgotten stepchild of the world tech community compared to, I don't know, Tokyo, Silicon Valley. What are your thoughts on that? Are we shedding that? Is it changing? I know fintech has a lot of possibilities here because of the proximity of Shoreditch in the city, but what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, there seems to be an institutional investor issue that we're trying to sort out with. The London Stock Exchange has got a new listing system. The guys over at Tech City have got this Future 50 concierge system to try and help people manage that. What the problem really is right now is currently the valuation to float in London is dramatically different than it is to float in the US. Now, that's not going to change unless people start floating in the UK.
Like the minimum valuation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we kind of need the big PE houses and equity firms in the UK to start sort of believing that this stuff is possible. And I don't think at the moment they sometimes realise how much talent and money and resource is being lost because America's a bit more on it, wants to get it a bit more, has worked a bit harder for it, hustles a bit more. We're still very British. We're still kind of, well, it's the computers, isn't it? It's not, it's not property. It's not bricks and mortar. It's still intangibleness. It's still, and a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, people got really, really burnt.
Yeah.
People went crazy in the 90s in the UK. They did in the States, but it's about changing that reality of, like, you don't need 20 million to do this stuff anymore. You need 20 grand.
Right.
Everything's in the cloud. You don't need to worry about scale. That will be handled by someone else. It's there is this new movement, and there's some really great opportunities. King.com are about to probably IPO. We've had people like Autonomy. We've got we've got ARM. Right, 98% of the world's phones are powered by chips built in the UK.
Right, in Cambridge. Right?
Designed certainly in the UK, if not built. The designer of the most popular computers and most lusted after is British. It's not. The British are not the failures that they think they are, and the press doesn't really help that kind of case either. It's it's still like internet website startup, so and so, and it's like we just look down on it with sort of distaste and disdain, and it's kind of like, you're idiots. Like, you're all going to be automated out of the process if you don't get on board and really sort of look at your business models and look at what you're doing. But we're still just not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, when an IPO happens, whoever takes the company public usually takes an equity investment, whether it's Barclays or these places. So they end up taking 5-10% of the company. So ultimately, they have to invest in it too.
Yeah.
But I mean that these drinkabouts happen literally, a half a mile from where I used to work in the city, and it just seems something as simple as getting more suits there to just feel this energy and start really understanding that it's more than just, hey, there's a brand new website coming out. It's like, no, this is a different business model, right?
And
this isn't just a hobby, right? Like these are big businesses that are starting here.
Absolutely, and predominantly banking has been very good at understanding how technology can affect it, right?
Yeah.
They've been doing big data forever, right? They've been super smart people from Oxford and Cambridge PhD scientists going in and trying to work out how to reduce latency and transaction times and working out exactly how much money is flowing around this money sphere. Like, they've been so good at it, but I don't think they know the vector difference between the money that they're making at Christmas time could turn into £10 million in 5 years.
Right.
If they didn't buy the Ferrari and instead invested in a 21-year-old idea, and a person, they've got a huge opportunity.
Yeah. The other issue is the innovator's dilemma, fintech being really big here, and a lot of these banks looking at these companies that might replace them.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe that's also a weird conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big reasons, one of the first things I've kind of announced that I'm doing is I've joined the board for City Meets Tech to try and help this piece, to try and get the city to understand that there's other ways to make money than just on money. There's entire markets to be disrupted. There's entire opportunities, and there's a huge number of companies that are 20 years old who are desperately struggling, to work out how they do things. And there's so many companies that still don't get online, they don't get tech, they certainly don't get mobile, and they're certainly not going to get some of the new inventions that come through. So there's a real opportunity there for, I think, this generation of people to explain that and to sell that and make that happen.
Wow, that's exciting. Well, we've got a few minutes left here, but I always want to ask you a question that I'm going to steal from London Real. Yeah. And this is, if you could pick up one of your phones and make a phone call to the 20-year-old Ben Southworth and give him a bit of advice, and it can't be, keep going, Ben, you're doing a good job. What would you tell him?
Invest in Apple.
Yeah. What would you tell him?
Actually, I told my dad when I was 14, just before Steve Jobs came back, to invest in Apple, and he didn't. And like every now and then I remind him just how much money I would have made him.
Jeez, that's a lot of money.
It would have been silly, like it was, it's like 140
times.
Yeah, it's like stupid, right? Yeah. Would have made him like a millionaire with $2,000. So anyway,
philanthropic, so not like that.
I would have told myself to have more belief. I was
belief in
myself,
system, in yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I was a mess at 20. I think a lot of people.
Weren't we all?
Yeah,
lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, a lack of hope. Really,
right.
I felt so weird and different and alone and scared and just unsure what the future would bring.
Right.
And I never expected to end up where I've ended up, and I have no idea what's coming next. But I'm reconciled to that. That's great.
Right.
I've kind of begun to enjoy that.
The unknown is not so bad.
And I think, talking about what you care about and what you're passionate about, you attract other people who are passionate and care about it, and that energizes. And if I hadn't have gone to a tweet up on whenever it was Thursday night and met my two very good friends, none of this stuff would have ever happened, and I would never be sitting here talking to you. And you just don't know, right? You just don't know.
It's good advice. And if you, on that same note, if you had to give a bit of advice to the 20-year-old listening to this right now who wants to, be like Ben someday, or be like, Acton from Mushy Monsters, what would you tell them if you had to give them like a simple set of advice?
I think find something you care about, work out if there's money in it, and just do it. And take that risk now before the mortgage comes and the kid comes and the partner comes and responsibility starts laying down on you, because it's hard enough to do. And I think especially when you're sort of 20, like that's the time. Like you still got, whatever happens, you still got time to make it all good. You can spend 5 years trying stuff. Right. Ask, learn, believe in yourself, forgive yourself, try stuff, don't be afraid to fail. Learn a little bit of coding. Don't learn everything, but a little bit of HTML, CSS, be able to throw up a website. It just helps get an idea off the ground. Like you can pitch stuff if there's something people can look at. You can send anyone an email as long as there's a link in it they can click. And just read and learn and talk and celebrate and help people, help others, and it'll all be glorious. It'll all be fine,
It's awesome advice,
Yeah, it is good.
Wow. I mean, I feel like we could do this for another 40 minutes, but due to our abbreviated schedule of Silicon Reel, I'm used to it. I'm like, all right, let's just get started.
Yeah. You want a beer? Let's get going.
I know, right? Well, it's our abbreviated schedule for Silicon Reel, so I am going to wrap things up. I couldn't think of anyone better for the first one. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Laying sort of the foundation for where it will grow in the community, and exciting. Yeah,
and it's so great you're doing it. It's needed, and I want to help you get as many people in this seat and telling these stories, because life is a series of fascinating tales, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that this Silicon Reel project that Colin had the idea and that I'm going to help to do, it's really all about the community of people. So if anyone out there has suggestions, ideas, any criticisms, bring it. I'm going to be looking for even pictures and video for like a short intro. If you got anything, send that in to me. This really needs to be a whole collaboration thing. And next week we're going to have Bryce Keane in that chair, and so he's been really generous, and he's one of the three beards who does the Silicon Drink About. And we're filming these on Friday night because we're going to the Drink About right afterwards. Yeah. So if anyone sees this, you can see us there. We're going to be there pretty much every Friday, and because it is all about getting out there and meeting these people and seeing them and getting the whole vibe of the thing. So I'm pumped.
Ready to go.
You ready to go?
Ready to go to Drink About. There we go.
Yeah, so we'll head to that. If you was, we are going to be on iTunes very soon, so you can listen to this. If you want to check us out in video form, if you are listening, we're currently on the London Reel YouTube channel. We're on Facebook, Silicon Reel. We're on Twitter, Silicon Reel.
Yeah.
And that's it. Please send us, if you want to send an email right now, send it to info@londonreel.tv. Yeah. We'll have the Silicon Reel up for next week.
Yeah, shortly. We're starting. We're a tech startup, kind of not a tech startup, but we're a startup in this space, and we're getting there.
Awesome.
It'll be good.
Well, we'll go with the tagline to close out. It's about the people, and thanks so much, Ben.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.